My lords, as I all too often do in these debates, I find myself beginning with the regret that the regret motion isn't something stronger. Nonetheless, I thank the noble Lord Watson of Invergowrie, for putting down this motion and ensuring that the House has the chance to air these issues. However, I start from a philosophical position very different to the one of the noble Lord Watson. I believe that tests and exams are a harmful part of our system, far too dominant, consuming vast hours wastefully in preparation and cramming, a major contributor to mental ill health. And to what purpose? They test how well you do tests and exams, and little more. I can say that from personal experience, having over the years got high marks in subjects of which I knew little to nothing, simply working out what I needed to do for the test, learning that, then forgetting it as I walked out the door of the exam room. I'm not proud of that, but that's what the education system taught me to do. Yet for many people, we know that tests and exams are a hugely stressful, damaging experience, something in which they cannot show their true colours, skills, talents, ability, or knowledge. And particularly in the modern world, with search engines at your fingertips and the need to think creatively, critically, and flexibly, they are particularly poorly equipped as any kind of preparation for life, a life that will require you to cooperate with others rather than compete against them. And a preparation for life is what our education system should be, not just exams. Now, some of those arguments won't apply to these tests. One would hope that they won't be stressful, that there wouldn't be cramming for them, although given the panicked competition some parents feel and the pressure on teachers, that can't by any means be guaranteed. Nonetheless, there are powerful arguments against them, and the strongest of them was made to me some years ago when these tests were first mooted by a school head in North Yorkshire. I don't want to start children's school lives by damaging them with a test, she said, surprising, I think, herself, as she found herself near to tears at the thought. That's a view I've heard subsequently from many caring teachers, expert scholars, and is reflected in the briefings that I and I'm sure many others have received. The More Than a Score campaign group, with which I declare an interest since I work with them regularly, notes the utter senselessness of testing 4-year-olds. You could run the same test 3 days running and get 3 utterly different results. It just depends on how the child's feeling at the time. I note too that the campaign against reception baseline assessment had 112,000 signatures. And for many children, standardised tests are utterly unsuitable. Those with special educational needs, those with English as a second language, or, as we all know all too well, the massive, indefensibly ridiculous disadvantage of a summer birthday, a great flaw in our rigidly age straitjacketed educational system. The settling in period for primary school is very different for different children. For some, it's a great adventure. For others, a terrifying ordeal, no matter how much care and compassion they're shown. And that's definitely going to show in the test results. I note that the British Education Research Association expert panel questioned the accuracy of the data and how it could be used to support children's learning, stating, and I quote, "These tests cannot be accurate or fair," close quotes. Now, of course, now, under normal conditions, schools in the early weeks as children start are making assessment of their educational needs, but they're doing it in a non-intrusive and continuous way, using the teacher's professional judgment, rather than a one-off binary test, one in which answers are recorded as yes or no, with no space for comments. And there's also further risks and damage in reducing the time for play. We know that play is actually crucially important for the development of children's linguistic and cognitive skills, as well as beneficial for well-being and self-regulation. You take a class of 30 minutes of time for each test. That's 15 hours of lost teaching time in the first few weeks, not including the time spent preparing for the assessment and recording the results. I would also wish to add my voice to the question raised by the noble Lord Knight of Weymouth, noting that we have no guarantee that this data will not be sold to commercial organisations. In the Minister's answer, could we get that guarantee? Now, I think it's really telling that we're being told that this is aiming to close the attainment gap. Yet there's absolutely no evidence of how it might do that. The fact is, we do have a huge problem with the attainment gap, reflecting the fact that levels of inequality in our society, poverty, are extraordinarily wide. Schools can help, of course, but they cannot fix this problem. The only certain way to reduce the attainment gap is to end poverty and reduce inequality. The fact is, in conclusion, my lords, this test does nothing at all for teachers or pupils. It is designed and intended solely as a system measure. It is therefore all about the data and not about the child. Now, I seem to have been taking part in a lot of medical debates in your lordship's house in the past year. And one of the phrases that comes up again and again in those is first do no harm. This proposal, these baseline reception assessments, do harm, and certainly there's no evidence of benefit. And I agree with the Noble Lord Addington that we should not use COVID as a reason for delaying the introduction of these tests, as strong as that reason is. What we should do is simply abandon the whole misguided idea of reception baseline assessments. They are, as in far too many things we see from this government, a piece of theatre, a simulacrum of action, rather than an effective delivery of change. That would require actual resources, funding, support for schools, action to tackle the poverty and inequality that is the cause of the attainment gap. Thank you, my lords.
Lord